Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. I've been really busy recently, so it's been a bit since my last video, but I'm back with some more Victory Road World Cup content. My last video was on week 3 of the tournament, in which Team India secured a first place finish in the qualifying stages and moved onto the group stage. This stage was also made up of 3 weeks, but unfortunately I haven't been able to share any of that with you. The first week was up against Thailand, where I took my first week off actually. So we tied with them 4-4 with a slight win in game differential, but what that meant is that we had to do really well in the following weeks to secure an advancement forward. So after that was Hong Kong, and despite a rough 0-2 start, we came back to win that round 6-2, so that was a fantastic round for us. I did play and win my set that week 2-1 using a modified version of my Palkia Calyrex Ice team from the first week. But I was unfortunately traveling at the time and did not have access to my recording equipment, so that game is kind of lost to time. But this final week is against Costa Rica, and I am able to record that. I was able to, rather, and I'm going to share that with you now. I'm bringing a yet another Kyogreization team, but this time starring Charizard. It's really cool to see this kind of dual weather setup that doesn't really exist as much in Series 12. It's heavily based on the NAIC teams by players. One of them was Taran Birdie of Team UK, and the other one is my teammate Abai from Team India. They both brought these 6 with some slightly different moves. I'm bringing Taran's take on Whimsicott with Sunny Day, but a lot of Abai's and my own spreads across these teams. So yeah, I will link whatever I can for those two amazing players in the description below. Going into this match, we were up 2-0 against Costa Rica, so if I win, that guarantees us a spot in the playoff rounds. So let's dive into my best of 3 match against Sebastián and see how it went. Okay, so lucky for me, and as the game 1 starts, I see that my opponent is bringing the team that I've been preparing for, one of 2 teams. They brought this 2 out of the 3 sets that they've played so far in World Cup, so I made sure to have my lines prepared for this. So I immediately lock in Charizard and Amoonguss as a lead, and bring Kyogreization in the back. This is just a really strong lead for this team in particular. It gives us redirection to deal with the threats to Zard, Alecki in particular, and then we have Lumberry on Charizard to handle Venusaur's Sleep Powder, since Venusaur won't be affected by Rage Powder. Amoonguss also really strongly discourages my opponent setting up Trick Room with that Slowbro, since I can just Spore everything if they do that, and if they don't max Alecki, then we have Sleep Pressure into everything with it. That can be really huge to stop Slowbro from setting up, or to stop an Yveltal Dynamax, since we have that Koba Berry, so we'll live an Airstream and then put it to sleep. Kyogreization, of course, are just coming in the back since we want weather control, and we need a nice late game sweeper. Charizard will likely do a lot of damage, set up that residual, but it also usually tends to die before we really dealt with our opponent's full team. So yeah, that's pretty much the game plan. Let's hop into it and see exactly how it goes in game 1. Yeah, so my opponent leads with Regieleki and Venusaur. This is actually perfect for me. This is one of the leads that I prepared for, and it kind of makes sense from their perspective, right? Is that Regieleki can, if it maxes, can just completely annihilate Charizard, Kyogre, and Zacian. And by setting up that electric terrain, it will prevent my Amoonguss from doing anything. And on top of that, Charizard's flying, so they can just deal with. They can still put that to sleep with Sleep Powder, but they don't know I have that Lumberry. I'm expecting them to go for Max Lightning for all those reasons, and then try to Sleep Powder Charizard, so I go for a Rage Powder plus a Wildfire into Venusaur. Lumberry will only protect me once, and an Airstream will not allow me to outspeed once they swap in that Groudon, if they have it. So, yeah, I need to deal with it immediately. If they have a Focus Sash, then Wildfire will just kill it. Now, with all that said, I had my first surprise of the set right away on turn 1, when I saw that my Dynamax animation went off first, which means they are not maxing Regieleki. It's obviously faster, so it would have gone first. So this is a really ballsy play on my opponent's part, because it means that I could have gone for Spore. But yeah, they are hitting me with the Electro Web to bypass the redirection. It's a great read. We'll see throughout the set. My opponent is not shy to make reads at all, and this most likely modest Life Orb Regieleki does an insane amount of damage to Dynamax Charizard with a spread move. Like that's nuts. Yeah, we take way more than I'd like. Their Sleep Powder connects, so we will reveal their Lumberry. We will reveal our Lumberry rather to them. So that's some information that we've lost. It would have been nice maybe if it had missed, so they wouldn't know for game 2. But it still goes according to plan for the most part. we bring their Venusaur down to Sash with Wildfire. So now we know that Regieleki is Life Orb. We know that Venusaur is Focus Sash. That's all very good information to have right away on turn 1. This residual is going to start chipping away at Aleki and kill their Venusaur. So even though this didn't go entirely according to plan, I would have rather just taken a Max Lightning on my Amoonguss. Still pretty happy with that. So now my opponent brings out Yveltal, and here I'm a little scared. I could go for Rage Powder plus Wildfire again, but now that I'm at -1 speed, their Yveltal will outspeed me. So they could double up on Web plus Snarl if they're one of the like AV bulky Yveltals, and that would just KO Charizard outright, regardless of my redirection. So what I ultimately decide is the best play. I consider going for the Rage Powder for a moment here. Maybe they're not, but I think AV Yveltal is pretty common on this archetype. So what I ultimately do settle on here instead is to Max Guard my Charizard and go for Spore on the Yveltal. The idea there being that this covers the double spread damage play I mentioned a second ago, and it also covers a Dynamax by either of those Pokemon. Obviously Aleki won't be able to Max Lightning through Charizard's Max Guard, and Yveltal, if it targets Amoonguss with an Airstream, we have that Koba Berry. So we will take the Airstream and then proceed to put it to sleep, and then we'll be in a great position going forward. Because we know we will take another Electro Web, barely, mind you, but yeah, and it turns out that they maxed the Yveltal, so yeah, not bad at all. Our Max Guard comes out, so that was, I think this was definitely the right play. They go for Electro Web, that would have brought us down into the red for sure. And then next is their Yveltal. We're now at we're still at -1 speed because we guarded that one, but they put Airstream into Charizard, which is amazing, which means we don't reveal our Koba Berry yet. That is still information that is withheld, so that could happen in the future game. That could come in handy. We put the Yveltal to sleep, and now we're in a fantastic position because we can just redirect away a potential single target attack, and spread Electro Web won't kill Charizard, so we can just take out Aleki or whatever they choose to put into that slot. So yeah, I mean, we could be a little ballsier and try to go for Spore into that slot, like in case they go for a switch or something, but there's no point in taking that risk, right? Because if they go for a Thunderbolt or something, we obviously die. I do end up settling on Airstream here over Wildfire. I don't think it really matters. Ultimately, Airstream, despite the type disadvantage, it will kill Aleki from this range. And if they happen to have Incineroar instead of Groudon in the back, then it would have done a lot of damage. But they choose to just go for the Electro Web. I think that's the right play. You don't want to sacrifice something in the back that is at full health, rather than your Aleki that's already taken a bunch of chip. So yeah, we go for the Airstream here. If Electro Web had missed, or if they had gone for the single target move, this would have been really nice because it would have brought us back to neutral speed and therefore outspeeding an Yveltal, since Charizard has 1 base point higher on speed. But not the case. We just bring ourselves back up to -1 before our Dynamax ends. So, you know, the Charizard's absolutely done its job here, though. We've got 2 big KOs. Yveltal's asleep. We're in a fantastic position moving forward here. And after this little waiting period here, Groudon is revealed as their fourth. So, yeah, maybe Wildfire is the better play because it would have been an amazing catch if they'd switched, but we're fine. So at this point, it seems like the best play is just to be aggressive with both of my Mons here. Yveltal actually attacked, so it does not have... No, sorry, it has taken 1 turn of sleep, so it could wake up here. And Groudon could also go for Rock Slide to damage both my Mons, but that won't kill Amoonguss. And P-Blades obviously won't affect Charizard. Kyogre should easily beat Groudon in the endgame, so I choose to target Yveltal with a potential Blast Burn. And they just go for P-Blades. Which I guess Amoonguss is definitely a threat here, right? So it makes sense. Lucky for me, though, that doesn't even kill Amoonguss. Doesn't get close, but unlucky Blast Burn misses. That would have been really nice. That would have been a full power Blast Burn in the sun. Even if that is AV Yveltal, that would have been, and it's Dynamax, would have done an insane amount of damage. So pretty unlucky there, but it's still fine. We managed to put Groudon to sleep, so we still absolutely take that. Now we can just bring out Kyogre, we have Redirection with Amoonguss, and we should absolutely nuke the Groudon here. Now, their Reveltal has taken 2 turns of sleep at this point, so a wake up is pretty likely. It's not guaranteed though; they could stay asleep. But either way, the easy play here is just to go for the Rage Powder Water Spout. In retrospect, that Yveltal is not really doing much damage to my Kyogre, and they could just Snarl. So Spore into the Yveltal slot in case it wakes up would probably be the better play. But this is still safe, and it basically guarantees us the win at this point, so it's fine. Yeah, go ahead and see here. Groudon has to take its guaranteed sleep turn. We go for Rage Powder, and then at this point, the Yveltal reveals Snarl as it wakes up. So we have seen Life Orb on Alecki. That makes me very much, and no chip on Yveltal when it attacks. So that makes me very much suspect that it's going to be AV, and this -1 Spout in the rain obviously takes out Groudon, but the fact that it only did about 50% to Yveltal also tends to confirm this is going to be your standard AV Yveltal, so you're thinking like Snarl, Sucker Punch, Oblivion Wing, and Foul Play. Anyway, here it doesn't matter. I go double aggressive here, Spore and Water Spout. On the off chance they decide they want more recovery, they could O-Wing into Kyogre, so just in case we could put them to sleep, but they just go for Spore again. Kyogre's now at -2 and almost half health, so we're not going to kill with this single target Spout, but it's still going to do great damage, and ultimately there's exhaustion in the back, right, at full health, so there's no getting around that we've won game 1 here. So really good start. The game plan worked great, but now I'm thinking about game 2 already. The thought is that an adaptation I could make into this, Regieleki was kind of a pain, right? So the Electro Web absolutely just cemented speed control for them. So I could consider going for like a Whimsicott lead instead to just get a Tailwind going. With Tailwind, Zard will outspeed it. My whole team will outspeed it. So that is something to consider. But the thing is that Alecki didn't really win the game for them. It kind of just went down. Unless they're willing to bank it all on that and max and go according to what I want them to do with the Rage Powder redirection, they're probably not even going to bring it. So what I end up deciding to just go with the same lead. If they choose to go with like Slowbro, for example, which would be a different game plan, then Spore from my very slow Amoonguss, my min speed Amoonguss really discourages them going for that Trick Room. So and it will just stop their Slowbro from setting up. So I figure that just the same 4 is the way to go. We can make an adjustment if they have a successful game plan going into us here. And yeah, I think I take a second here at the team select screen, so we're just going to skip ahead. Cool. So jump into game 2 here now. All right. Yeah, so they do in fact switch it up, and they go for Incineroar plus Slowbro. I decide to read here at this point that what my thought was that they don't want me putting their Slowbro to sleep before it can do anything. So they'd probably want to fake out my Amoonguss to prevent that. And so what I do is I swap in Kyogre and I hit Slowbro with a Hurricane right off the bat. Now I could have gone for Overgrowth for more damage, but I'm worried about them going for Slack Off. That would just negate one of my Dynamax turns. They could also go for Trick Room and Slack Off the following turn. I know that Overgrowth is not a no-co here, so that it's just not the right play. It's great to finish them off. It's great if Sun comes up from the Groudon, then I can Solar Beam it. But for now, Hurricane should just be decent chip into it. We get the guaranteed accuracy with the Rain Up. Like, that's pretty solid. And they go for Flare Blitz into the Amoonguss slot, but it just kind of bounces off our Kyogre and Rain. So, pretty solid there. But then they go for Trick Room with the Slowbro. So, this isn't ideal for us. At this point, what I'm expecting for them to do is to go for a Parting Shot into my Groudon. But despite that, I know from last game that their Groudon is not AP because their Yveltal is. I think I also might have seen Leftovers Recovery. So what I decided to do is I want to get some solid chip with Water Spout. Even if I'm at -1, even if the sun's up, the Groudon's not going to appreciate it. And then I swap in my Amoonguss so that I can immediately start trying to use my opponent's Trick Room turns against them. And save Zard for later in the game. Ideally, it will be our max target. Yeah, Slowbro goes for Slack Off as expected, so that thing is going to be about as annoying as I thought to deal with. And Parting Shot goes off into Kyogre, yeah. So I expected it to be a Groudon switch to like really neuter the water spout damage on top of -1. But what instead they bring out now is a Venusaur. Yeah, so this is pretty rough because it means I only really have one viable target with my Amoonguss, and I also know that my Kyogre is faster than any Venusaur can be. So even though I know it's a Focus Sash Venusaur and therefore probably pretty speedy, they still underspeed me in Trick Room so long as the rain is up, or the sun isn't rather. So I see there's 3 turns of Trick Room left. From this point, I figure the best move is to protect Kyogre the first turn, avoid a Sleep Powder, swap in Charizard to eat another Sleep Powder with my Lumberry, and then protect it for the final turn of Trick Room. And then I go for a Spore into the Slowbro. But this is the probably the worst surprise of the set, is that I find out the Slowbro has safety goggles. Most of them run Wakan Berry, that's what I expected. They just generally don't want to get nuked by a Regieleki. The idea is you can eat that Max Lightning and then just set up Trick Room. But yeah, this is an adaptation they made more recently, and that really hampers my game plan. So I go ahead and swap into Charizard like I was planning on the previous turn, but then I also go ahead and double swap. I put Amoonguss into the Zacian. Reason being that I'm doing absolutely nothing now. One of my opponent's Pokemon is Grass, and the other one has Goggles, so Amoonguss can't do anything except for maybe heal with Pollen Puff. Man, I think what was happening here is that I was just really cautious that I was putting the right Pokemon in the right slots. I didn't want to accidentally take a Sleep Powder on Zacian, for example. The other thing this covers for is if they go for a Max Vine Lash into the Kyogre. Charizard 4 times resists that. I mean, it'll still hurt a little bit, and then the residual will hurt more than the damage, actually. So it wouldn't be ideal, but eating a Vine Lash on a Fire Flying type would be very nice. So yeah, that was my reasoning on this turn. As you're about to see, though, my opponent, again, makes another fantastic read going into this turn. They go ahead and Gigantamax their Venusaur. Well, that's kind of expected to some degree, I guess. I was hoping that they would just keep spamming Sleep Powder, but they get an Iron Defense up on Slowbro, which is rough. This is the setup that I was hoping to avoid by sporing it, but it's about to get set up and get really powerful body presses. And then they use a Weather Ball Max Geyser into my Kyogre slot. So this was an amazing read. Oko's my Charizard that I was hoping to keep alive as my max target. Yeah, I was not pleased about this one. And now we're in a really rough spot. That was an amazing read, because had I just chosen to ignore the danger of a Sleep Powder or Vine Lash, they could have just absolutely wasted a max turn there. But yeah, no, I mean, the risk-reward seemed really high for them, and it paid off a lot. So at this point, I figure I need to do a read of equal magnitude to get myself back into the game. So what I do is I put Kyogre out basically as bait for the Vine Lash. I know they're going to want to use it at least once to get the residual up. And then I immediately double it back out into Amoonguss, who also will 4 times resist a Vine Lash, right? So, yeah, the Grass Poison will 4 times resist it. So we do that, and then we put a Behemoth Blade into the Venusaur. I figure that there's nothing they can do to Oko Zacian. We should take a Weather Ball, and if they swap in Groudon to have access to Flare, then the Venusaur will then be faster and therefore be slower than us under Trick Room. I guess they could have doubled in with Geyser plus Body Press. That might have done it. Yeah, you're about to see now that this Body Press here hurts a lot, down to 50%. I believe they're at +4 here, so that makes sense. But we at least do get the Vine Lash all right. The Amoonguss Seed set up perfectly, and it's not going to take anything from Residual because of its Grass typing. So that's solid, and all that being done means that Zacian finally gets to move under Trick Room and throw out a Behemoth Blade and easily pick up this KO onto Venusaur. So we're back in it, but still, I would say behind, just because Slowbro has been allowed to set up, and we don't have any real super effective damage into it. The closest thing to that we have is Amoonguss's Pollen Puffs, which are non-stab and not very strong. So yeah, not great, and we're taking Residual. The good news is that we have stalled out Trick Room entirely, so that is definitely a positive. But my opponent now can bring their Incineroar back in and get a nice Intimidate onto us. So yeah, there's that fresh Vine Lash residual we have to deal with. So knowing that they have goggles on their Slowbro, I decide to protect Zacian and go for a Spore into the Incin slot. I usually wouldn't risk Sporing an Incin since they also tend to carry goggles pretty frequently, but at this point it seems pretty free. They could make a read and double my Amoonguss with like Flare Blitz plus Body Press. We should take a single Flare Blitz. So yeah, the play ends up being that I go for a Spore into the Incin slot and protect my Zacian since I am definitely within range of another Body Press putting me out of my misery here. And at this point, like, Zacian's intimidated and Slowbro has that +4, so Zacian's not really doing much for us, but it still seems to be a priority target for them. They have revealed 3 non-restricted Pokemon, so either Groudon or Yveltal is in the back. This was a really good play here, is that they parting shot it off of my Amoonguss, so like, me fearing the fake out was why I protected Zacian, but that means that they get the switch, but they put it into a Yveltal. Now, this explains why they really want the Zacian gone, is that Play Rough can just take out a Yveltal even at -1, I think. But it just means that they've put their Yveltal into line of a Spore. So this is a pretty good turn for us, all things considered. Now, with that being said, Vine Lash takes us from 61 to 29, which means the next turn of Vine Lash will just take us out. So because Zacian is not long for this world, and because I don't want to expose my Kyogre in the back to a Body Press, I just double into the Yveltal. Play Rough should take it out if it doesn't switch, and if it does switch, then the Spore will go off into Incin. So pretty solid all around. I think this is the best play for us to take. Slowbro will probably either set up Trick Room, Slack Off, or attack Amoonguss because Zacian's going down anyway, but I think this is something we have to accept. Yveltal switches out indeed, goes out into Incineroar, so that's fine, we're gonna get the Spore off. And even at -1, Play Rough is Stab and Neutral into Incin, so it should still do a decent chunk. No, wait, but we miss, yeah. So I am 0 for 2 on 90% accurate moves in this set, which I don't love, but it's fine because we do have a Kyogre in the back, so not the end of the world there. Slowbro does go for Trick Room, though, which I really don't appreciate. It would have been fantastic if Kyogre was able to go for a Water Spout, but now I kind of have a dilemma here. If you look at a damage calculator, it really depends on the how defense invested the Slowbro is, but with my Kyogre spread, a +4 Body Press will do, I think, like 75 to 80%, and a +6 is guaranteed or close to guaranteed OHKO, depending on how defensive they are again. So, and because it's goggles, I can't redirect. So I as much as I'd love to go for a Spout here and take out the Incin plus damage the Slowbro, I figure that my only real option here is to go for a Geyser into that slot. If I'm Dynamax and double my HP, I can at least tank the Body Press a lot better, and then proceed to Pollen Puff it back up. So yeah, we decided to pop our Dynamax here. That is our big advantage, that they burned theirs on the Venusaur earlier. And we actually go for the Pollen Puff damage into the Slowbro. The reason being is that it's kind of a waste when we've only taken that tiny bit of chip. Amoonguss is faster than everything here, so yeah, if the Slowbro was actually slower than my Amoonguss, then I would have gone for Pollen Puff heal plus Spout, since I know it's not going to kill me. But seeing as it is, yeah, this seemed like the best play. But they do just go for Slack Off, and the Incineroar has to take its guaranteed sleep turn. So in retrospect, I really should have gone for Spout. That would have been fantastic. But I think I made the right play, and I think that I just accounted for the best possible play that didn't happen. It is what it is, though, and we're not in the worst spot here. So now we've taken out Incineroar. Yveltal is going to come out, and because we've determined that it's AV, unfortunately, we're probably not going to get the OHKO. But that is okay still, because it hasn't taken a guaranteed turn of sleep, and it should be faster than my Kyogre. So under Trick Room, we will get two attacks off on it before it gets to do anything. At this point, I'm pretty sure that they're the right process, the right thing for them to do is to start attacking my Kyogre. So I decide that with the bit of Vine Lash chip we just took, it's probably best to start healing up Kyogre with those Pollen Puffs, keep it healthy so that Slowbro can't overwhelm us with boosted Body Presses, and just take out that Yveltal. That's what we do. Pollen Puff should bring us right back up to full. Normally heals half, I believe, and then under Dynamax it's more like a quarter. Body Press does about a quarter of our HP, so that means it would do 50% to us out of max. And then Geyser goes off to a Veltal. So that's great. It's kind of interesting, actually. If +4 Body Press does 25% to me, breaking it up from 370 to 262, then I'm not sure that +6 actually would be an Oko out of max. It might be just very close. So anyway, yeah, I choose to go for a Geyser into a Veltal. I decide to preserve PP on the Water Spout. It doesn't really matter. And then we just keep healing up. That's all there is to it at this point. We want as strong of a Water Spout as possible once Trick Room's over, because we're unlikely to have any rain turns. And they just go for an Iron Defense, so that's really huge. They're now at +6. They now have that massive Body Press that has the potential to Oko Kyogre once Dynamax is over, so it's not great. Again, I need to see, based on how much damage they did, I'm not sure that they were fully physically defensively invested, which means that we might have actually just been safe, but that was definitely the thing, though, is first and foremost in my head is that I was at risk of just being killed outright. So Max is over, we're in a 2v1 situation, and for Trick Room, there's only one turn of it left. There's also only 2 turns of Rain left, you can see here, and my opponent's at +6. So my worry was that they were just going to kill Kyogre using their final turn of Trick Room. So I go for the really simple play in that I attack with Pollen Puff, which is, still does a decent bit of chip, being that it's super effective and special, and just protect Kyogre. This was fairly obvious in retrospect. I thought it was just the safe play for me to win. But yeah, my opponent, again, reads me completely and goes for the Body Press into the Amoonguss slot. And so despite my Amoonguss being quite bulky, despite the type advantage, it still is a 2-hit KO, which is kind of terrifying, right? Yeah, so at this point, I figure it's kind of all or nothing. If that Slowbro can Oko me with Body Press, then all they have to do is survive Pollen Puff plus Water Spout here, and kill Kyogre and then slack off, and they can kill Amoonguss since they are faster than me out of Trick Room. So yeah, it basically all comes down to this turn. So Water Spout goes off, single target in the rain, does quite a lot, but it's not looking like Pollen Puff will kill it, and it doesn't here. But what's weird, what shocked me at the time, is that Slowbro should have gone first, and it didn't, because it went for Trick Room, and I think this was my opponent's, this was a fatal mistake here. This is kind of a throw. Had they just attacked Kyogre, I think that would have been the out, but now my Amoonguss underspeeds them in Trick Room, and they are in range of another Pollen Puff, so that's going to wrap it up, and we just click our moves and call it there. Really crazy game, great set to my opponent Sebastián, especially this game 2 here, but with this set win, India secures its spot in the playoffs, and with the wins that come afterwards, spoiler, my teammates do quite well after me. We guaranteed first seed from our group too. So that's all I have for now, but I will be back with more World Cup VGC content soon. Until next time.